Another technique is assumption busting, challenging the assumptions under which the problem is identified. Shlomo has some important insights on this issue.
So let's talk a bit about assumptions and another approach to innovation. This was invented by a great management consultant named Peter Drucker. I think most people agree he was the greatest management consultant ever. The reason, by the way, was simply that he did his work in the field, at the coalface, not in the 30th floor of the head office in the glass corner office. And Drucker had a brilliant method for innovating. Drucker told us, in the theory of business, every business is based on assumptions. Assumptions about the product, the customer, the environment, the regulatory system. And we take these for granted. Sit down and write down a careful list of all the things that you assume that are obvious, they have to be true. And then one by one, start to ask yourself, what if they're not true? For example, everybody knows you have to charge a price for your product to get some money or you have no cash flow. And a great company called Netscape, which invented one of the first browsers, decided, no, we'll give away our product for free. And Netscape did an initial public offering of stock in 1995 that went through the roof based on this free product that they gave away. What are your assumptions? What are your most cherished sacred cows? And what happens if you smash them one by one? Sometimes you get amazing innovations.
The last creativity improvement technique I want to mention is the use of a creative thinking process, of which there are many. The example I want to talk about is the productive thinking process developed by Tim Hurson. I asked him to explain the process in detail.
First step is what's going on. We simply ask ourselves, what's the environment? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it taste like? How does it impact? Second step is, what's success? How do I vision a future which is going to be really compelling, which is going to allow me, is going to give me the energy, is going to give me the sustainability to do all the work that it will take to get there. So, what's going on, and then what's success? Third step is, what's the question? What are the key questions that I have to ask myself that will allow me to get to that future that I've been thinking about? Fourth step is answer the question. Tons of ways of doing that, but what we're looking for is a rich treasure trove of potential answers to a question. We're not looking for final solutions at all. We're looking at little embryonic answers to a question so that we'll have enough of them that we'll be able to find some of the pearls that might exist in that mass of potential answers. Fifth step is called forge the solution. That's where you take that little embryonic idea and you start beating it up. You start really putting it in a forge in the same way that a blacksmith might take a sword and put it in the forge to try to make a sword that is both supple and strong at the same time. You want to work that idea. You want to fire that idea. You want to test that idea. You want to stress that idea. You want to enhance that idea. You want to praise that idea. You want to allow that idea to anneal in the same way that steel might. So that what comes out at the end is something that is workable, that is robust, that is interesting, that is compelling, and that has a possibility for success. And then finally, the sixth step is aligning your resources. Having this idea, what are the resources that I have to align in order to bring this idea into reality? How to make it real. And what will happen is that in that stage, you will identify resources, you will assign tasks, you will do prototypes, you will fail and do more prototypes, and so on. But it's the alignment of the resources that allows you to get to the end of the process. But it's only an end temporarily, because ultimately you probably go through that process again in a kind of a spiral mode as you keep developing, keep refining, and keep improving the work that's already on the workbench.
For those looking beyond simple solutions to enhance creativity, I want to mention the importance of playfulness and fun in enhancing creativity. Tim Brown, the CEO of IDEO, the world's leading creative agency, says this.
So we have the finger blasters, other people have dinosaurs. You know, why do we have them? Well, as I said, we have them because we think maybe playfulness is important. But why is it important? We use it in a pretty pragmatic way, to be honest. We think playfulness helps us get to better creative solutions, helps us do our jobs better, and helps us feel better when we do them. Now, an adult encountering a new situation, when we encounter a new situation, we have a tendency to want to categorize it just as quickly as we can. And there's a reason for that. We want to settle on an answer. Life's complicated. We want to figure out what's going on around us very quickly. I suspect actually that the evolutionary biologists probably have lots of reasons why we want to categorize new things very, very quickly. I mean, one of them might be, when we see this funny stripy thing, is that a tiger just about to jump out and kill us, or is it just some weird shadows on the tree? We need to figure that out pretty fast. At least we did once. Most of us don't need to anymore, I suppose. This is some aluminum foil, right? You use it in the kitchen. That's what it is, isn't it? Of course it is. Of course it is. Well, not necessarily. Kids are more engaged with open possibilities. Now, they'll certainly, when they come across something new, they'll certainly ask, what is it? Of course they will. But they'll also ask, what can I do with it? And, the more creative of them might get to a really kind of interesting example. And this openness is the beginning of exploratory play. Any parents of young kids in the audience? Must be some. Yeah, thought so. So we've all seen it, haven't we? We've all told stories about how on Christmas morning, our kids end up playing with the boxes far more than they play with the toys that are inside them. And from an exploration perspective, this behavior makes complete sense because you can do a lot more with boxes than you can do with a toy. Even one like, say, Tickle Me Elmo, which despite its ingenuity, really only does one thing. Whereas boxes, offer an infinite number of choices. So again, this is another one of those playful activities that as we get older, we tend to forget and that we have to relearn.
Rebecca Henderson from Harvard University teaches a course called Reimagining Capitalism and shares with us some insights about how having a purpose increases creativity.
But I think having a purpose that's beyond just the success of your business, or a purpose to have the business make a broader impact in the world, is likely to increase creativity for a number of reasons. Firstly, it makes you look at the world in a different way. When you begin to understand the problems that we face and that need to be solved, you start seeing business opportunities all over the place. The second reason purpose might increase creativity is that it increases the likelihood of attracting like-minded people who care about those same goals. And because you're passionate about doing something larger, you're likely to think in different kinds of ways. Some of the psychological research suggests that, when we're young, we think only about ourselves, and as we get older, we sort of start negotiating with other people. But it's really a third stage of development to look more broadly and think about the world as a whole and your role in it. And I think the research suggesting that broader view is linked to creativity is quite compelling. So to get a group that's thinking at that broader wavelength, that's necessarily having to find new ways of doing things, is, I think, a very powerful driver of creativity. But people who are purpose-driven are much better at dealing with setbacks. That if what you're thinking about is your immediate return and your space, you're likely to be really thrown when things go badly. But when you're trying to do something greater than yourself, when you're trying to make a difference, you have a broader narrative to place yourself in. This is a longer journey and a more difficult path. So of course there'll be setbacks, and that's inevitable, but you know where you're going, and particularly if you think the world is going there with you, and I do think it is, that's an enormous source of hope and drive.
So far, we've talked a good deal about becoming more creative, and we'll end this lesson about talking barriers to creativity, which is the first step in trying to remove them. Noting that many of these barriers are actually self-imposed.